So the mind is useful. It's a powerful tool. But in human consciousness, the mind has become a cancer. It's not seen just as a tool, that the mind has usurped reality, and the mind has become its own reality. To such an extent that we human beings find ourself, find our sense of self, find who we think we are in our thinking process. This is called the self-image, the image of who we are. So every human being has the experience of the mind being divided, of competing forces in the mind, shoulds and shouldn'ts, rights and wrongs, and all the rest. As the light of awakening starts to penetrate on the level of mind, of course, we see that mind has no inherent reality to it. It's just a tool. It's a tool that reality can use. But in and of itself, a thought is just a thought. A thought has no truthfulness to it. You can have the thought of a glass of water, but if you're thirsty, you can't drink the thought. You can think about a glass of water until you die. But to actually pick up a physical glass and actually drink the water is a totally different reality. You can pick up the glass and drink the water without any thought of glass or water. And so thought itself is empty. It's empty of reality. At best, thought is symbolic. It points in the direction of a truth or an object. But many thoughts don't even do that. Many thoughts in human consciousness are just thoughts thinking about other thoughts. Thought thinking about thinking. Spiritual meditators will be meditating, and one thought will be saying, I shouldn't be thinking. But of course, that thought is itself thought. So it's very easy to get trapped in the various loops of thinking. So as we awaken on the level of mind, we really perceive. We don't just understand in thought, we perceive from something beyond the mind, that the mind itself is empty of reality. And this is a very profound thing. To say the mind is empty of reality is an easy thing to say. It may even be an easy thing to understand for some people. But to see that the mind is empty for reality is radical in the extreme. It's radical in the sense that we see our whole sense of self and our whole sense of the world is literally created in the mind. And so as we see that the structure of thought holds no intrinsic reality, we come to see that the world as we perceived it through the mind can't have any reality. And this is earthshaking. The self that we perceive ourselves to be in the mind can't have any reality. And so, awakening, penetrating the level of thought, if it really goes through and through, shows the mind itself, shows thought itself, that is not where reality is. That actually the mind is only capable of thinking along dualistic lines, of right or wrong, should and shouldn't, beautiful and ugly, love and hate. These are the dualistic lines upon which minds think. But the truth is much bigger. As many spiritual teachers have said throughout history, the truth, the true nature of things is beyond good and bad, right and wrong. Which doesn't mean that good and bad and right and wrong don't have a place in our relative lives, but it means that reality is something far beyond them. And this is disorienting to a mind. When at once we start to wake up out of the conceptual level, the mind will tend to grasp as it feels reality disappearing out of its sphere, out of its influence. It will grasp even at insights and realizations, all in an effort to reorganize itself, to put itself back together. We can even have great awakenings, and the mind can co-opt the awakening itself. and turn it into a new formulated idea, a new formulated belief. But of course, the truth is always going to be beyond the mind, beyond anything I or you can say about it. It must be directly experienced for each person, by each person, for themselves. And so, for quite a long time, the mind will try to keep grasping, keep conceptualizing, keep even turning spiritual insight into new mental formulations. But that's why I always remind all of my students, I may give a context, I may paint certain spiritual pictures or use certain spiritual maps as a way of helping to orient consciousness to what's happening. But these maps, these paintings, these teachings are themselves not the truth itself. They're models, they're conceptual models. So we must be able to have the conceptual models become transparent, to see right through them. As they say in Zen, to see them as fingers pointing to the moon and not the moon itself. So this is a very deep thing, to really and truly be fully awakened in the level of mind. To be totally honest, the vast majority of people that I see and that I meet that have some realization, some actual authentic awakening, more often than not, at some level or another, the mind co-opts what they've realized and turns it into another mental formulation, which will, of course, cause the direct realization to slip beneath their fingers, to slip right out of their hands. Until sooner or later, we all find out that we cannot conceptualize the truth. When we realize that, the mind becomes a tool. The mind is used by something other than thought. The mind is used by something other than the fundamentalist attitude that actually believes what it thinks or actually thinks there is reality in what it says. But there is the possibility that mind and thought and even speech can originate from a different place. That the mind can be used as a tool. And what's using the mind can be being. Thought can actually arise from silence. Speech can arise from silence. Communication can arise from a silence, from a place far beyond the mind. And then the mind is used as a tool, as a device to communicate, to point, to orient, but always remains transparent to itself, never fixates in itself, never becomes a new form of fundamentalist belief or ideology. So there is a tremendous capacity of mind if we are awakened in the level of mind.